Hello, welcome back. Today we're going to cover three types of count functions, along with two additional COUNTIF and COUNTIFS functions, two logical count functions. In our last video, we looked at different types of SUMIF functions, and in this video tutorial, we're going to cover count A, or count all, and then count blank. And then in this next tab over, we're going to cover COUNTIF plus COUNTIFs. You might recognize or recall like a lot of this material was used just in the last one. I'm going to try to just build upon these, or maybe switch it up just as we go, just so that we're kind of using like the same material, but like building on top of our what we've learned so far. So let's get started. So the basic count function equals count. This only requires one value. So this could be this could be a cell that we just click on and then close parentheses around and then just press enter. The most important thing that I think I tell students and what I tell others about this function is that it'll only count numbers. It won't count text. For instance, if I click on hello world, which is right here, and close parentheses and press enter, it's going to give me a 0 because this only counts numerical values. It does not count errors. It does not count blanks. So I put in here in this cell, despite it looking blank and well, technically being blank, it actually does have a formula entered into it. So if I tried to actually count any of these, I just get 0. If you actually wanted to count for an error, you would have to use a COUNTIF function. But the base thing that, the main thing I just like to always key in is that this only counts numbers. So if I was to select column A here, which has 10,000 numerical values from A2 downwards to A 10,001, it won't count this values header because that is a text. So if I press enter, I have 10,000 values in this column here. Now, there's also count A, which I like to just call count all. This will count both your numerical values and your text. It basically is just counting everything that there is, except for your completely empty cells. From what I recall, the best way to just test this out is to play around with it. So if I put column A in there, this is going to give me 10,001 because, just as I said before, this counts both the numerical values and the text values. And let me just reformat that. If I'm counting all of the cells here in this list, pretty sure I'm just going to get either 1 or 2, because I know 1 will come from hello world, but this blank I don't believe gets counted. Never mind, I stand corrected. It actually counts everything. So it just counts everything so long as there is something in there. So if I tried to reorient this formula from C2 to C5 to C2 to C6, I'm still only going to get 4 because it can't count the cells that have nothing in them. Otherwise this count all here, we would have had the entire length of the column, which is something north of like 1 million cells in each column. There's something over 1 million cells in each column. Taking it a step further, just to the count blank, this will count only like truly blank cells, so cells that have nothing entered into them. So if I highlight this 3 by 3 cell range right here and then press enter, I'll get 9 because there's nothing in here. But the moment I start typing stuff in here, so if I put in 1, 2, 3, like you'll notice that the number's going down. I guess I should have maybe typed it like this, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then just to kind of mirror like what we would see on like a phone pad or something. This also, though, it does calculate or it does count blanks, cells that have this entered in, which is equals and then a set of quotation marks. And if you press enter, it doesn't change the count because this is still being counted as a blank. So that covers count all, and count blank. This is very, there are more use cases just for the counts and count A's. I don't really see count blank that often or use it, but it's really the COUNTIFs. And so moving on to the COUNTIF and COUNTIFs, where we get a little bit more traction, like a little bit more in the way of business use cases. So here I just calculate just like an average salary, like if we took this budget proposal and divided by the head count to get maybe like an average salary or average budget per person, per head count. I also put in just the type of, say, like the type of status that the team in each state has. So if they're remote, they're fully working from home, on site, they have to be in the office 5 days a week, and then hybrid is like some kind of mix between the two. So let's say you received a question from someone in the leadership team that is something like this. What is the total, or what? How many teams have budgets that are less than $200,000? So this could kind of come in. I mean, let's say this is someone from like in a senior leadership team capacity sees this and is just wondering, well, like this is great, but if we're thinking about budgets for like the next year or like changing our forecast, having this number might help us just in terms of like seeing. I guess maybe if we're over budget, how many teams have budgets that are over 200,000? So to do this, you would actually you would use a COUNTIF formula. So you would type in COUNTIF, and the range. So this would be column C, or you could also just select the cell range like that. And the criteria, you would have to enter this in a little bit like more sort of precisely, rather than just like we can't just type in like more than 200,000. This won't work. At least this won't work because you'll get this error pop up. Because when you're trying to type in a formula, it has to be entered in a specific way. So you have to put a pair of quotes around your criteria. Once you press enter, we're going to get a count of the number of teams that are over 200,000. So just a reminder, when you highlight a cell range like this, you'll see in the bottom right, you have averages, you have counts, and you have sums. The count here is 21, and it says here we have 14 teams that have budgets over 200,000, which I think kind of can pass this, the sense check, because if we're just looking from the top, we have one here, we have two here, we have one more here, and we have one down here, and I believe we have so 200,000 is also included, because I just said like how many teams are more than 200,000, and I think we might have one more. Oh, and right there. So this gives us a count of 7, which is the complement of the number of teams, which is 21, to this 14. So that's just one way to use a COUNTIF. You could also use it in a different way. So like, let's say another person asks like, how many teams work remotely? So you can type in equals COUNTIF, the remote status, comma, and then you just type in remote. So that's like one way to use the COUNTIF function using like a text criteria. And so that these are just kind of two fairly straightforward ways of using the COUNTIF. If we're using COUNTIFs though, which gets a little bit more interesting, we could use multiple criteria, similar to the SUMIFs from the last video. We might receive a question that is something like, how many teams work on site and have already submitted their budgets. And so this will be three criteria. And have at least 3 people working on their teams. On their respective team. I believe that's how you word that. Okay, so this would be a more pronged COUNTIFs. So COUNTIFs. So the first thing we want to do is how many teams work on site. So comma. I just type in on site. Oh, the one thing that I do want to mention is this has to be. This is case specific, so this can't be like that. On site. And how I spelled it here is with a capital S, so it should be a capital S here too. Criteria range 2, so that's going to be the whether or not they submitted their budgets. So that's going to be yes, and also have a head count. I think it was more than 3, I believe. That's greater than 3. Press enter. So we have 0. We have zero count for those that fit the 2 criteria. So let me actually just get rid of maybe this last one here and have already submitted their budgets. So we can maybe get rid of this last one here. If I press enter. Okay, so we have 6 teams who work on site and have already submitted their budgets. A quick way to check this rather than just go through it one by one is also just to go, if you go to data, and then you filter this. If I filter the remote status to just on-site, and then I think we were only looking for those that have submitted their budgets, we get the magic number 6 here. So that's one way to do it. I mean, you could also filter it, but then you wouldn't be able to use you wouldn't have a chance to use the formula. So always double check your work. That's my biggest takeaway when it comes to doing anything analytical or crunching any numbers or anything related to data analysis. So yeah, that's about it. Let me try one more maybe. How many, or maybe not. Let's do just a COUNTIFs on. Let's repeat this question. Just reuse this question. How many teams work on a hybrid schedule and employ more than 3 people? We'll take 2 on this. Equals COUNTIFs with an S. Criteria range 1 is this equals hybrid. And then criteria range 2 will be this head count column, comma, is greater than 3. Okay, I guess I'm just getting the magic number 6 here with all these. Let me change this to, okay, instead of hybrid, instead of how many teams work on a hybrid schedule, on a remote schedule. Okay, this, we should actually get a different answer. Remote. So we have 4. So we have 4 people who are working on a remote schedule and employ more than 3 people. So just to quickly double check that, it's remote, and we just have to take off the 3, and we have 4 people. Four teams. But yeah, that's all I have. It's pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts. Like, favorite, subscribe, and all that, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay.